All right, so there are a couple of the inverse trig functions, the arc trig functions that you have to know as well. So we're going to do derivative of arc sine and derivative of arc tangent. I'm going to talk about that. For right now, just put those two. So derivative of arc sine, derivative of arc tangent. So arc sine is 1 over the square root of 1 minus x squared. And arc tangent is 1 over, no, not square root. What am I talking about? 1 over x squared plus 1. Or 1 plus x squared, because it doesn't matter what order you add in. Now, up until fairly recently, those were the only two that were considered fair game for the AP exam. But recently, I did see an arc cosine on something. So I'm going to just give you that one too. It is the exact same thing as arc sine, except what do you think? Negative, because it's a co. So if you want to put that one at the bottom, again, I'm just trying to be super thorough. Anything that I see, I'm going to show to you just to, I do not want anyone to be like, well, she never taught us that, you know, so I've showed it to you. But here's my pep talk with these. And we're going to talk about this more when we go to review for the AP exam. Oh, by the way, you're $40 and you need to go on to AP exam or AP classroom and choose yes by November 10th. It's coming up. There is too much in this course to be able to memorize. So you need to make decisions about what you're going to let go. Do you get what I'm saying? Or do you nail the rest of it? So I'm presenting to these to you, and you can do what you will with them. Okay. But this is one of those things where like you might get one of them on there, but it's not like a real heavy topic. The 6 like trig functions, you need those. These ones kind of up to you. So let's go back to our examples and we'll just do a couple of these. Now they are the arc trig functions, but what other rule is in there? Chain rule, because it's not just arctangent of x, it's arctangent of more than just x. Okay. So for arctangent, it was 1 over. Now the rule says x squared plus 1, but it's going to be that stuff squared plus 1. Like the rule says x squared, but it's, you know, like that stuff, the guts of the problem. And then chain rule dot, you have to do the derivative of 7x, which would be 7. Now that I am going to clean up a little bit because if you see these, it's likely to be multiple choice. Where could I put that 7? Yeah, that could be in the numerator. I should have written a little smaller. And then down here, if you square 7x, what's that going to give you? 49x squared plus 1. So like if you see a multiple choice, that's likely how that's going to show up. And we'll do the same thing with this one. Arc sine, it'll be 1 over square root. Now the rule says 1 minus x squared, but it's going to be 1 minus, like that stuff squared. And then chain rule dot, what do you have to multiply on? Yeah, derivative of 3x squared, which would be 6x. And then again, because this is most likely to show up as multiple choice, you can put the 6x in the numerator. And down here, you'll have square root 1 minus what? You have to square that stuff. Yeah, it'll be 9x to the 4th. Squared would be to the 4th. So I've shown them to you. You can do what you will with them, but I suggest flashcards. Make yourself some flashcards. Okay. 9 says write the equation of a tangent line. What 2 things do you need to write an equation? Oh my gosh, you guys are awesome. All right, so your point is going to be pi over 3 something. As a heads up, we're going to need the unit circle. And then slope. So we're going to plug in pi over 3. If you plug in pi over 3, it immediately gets multiplied by a 3. So it'd actually just be pi. I'm going to take you through this. Like, you have an imagination? You'll have an imagination? Where is pi on the unit circle? Left. And we want cosine. That's the x part, so that would be -1. Good. -1 to the 5th is good. Perfect. It's -1 times -1 times -1 5 times, which would be -1. All right. Slope comes from derivative. 3 links in the chain rule. What's the most outside one? The 5. Bring it down, drops to a 4. Everything else stays. The guts of it stays. Chain rule dot. Now which function are we on? Cosine, but we're done with the power. What's the derivative of cosine? Good. All right, negative sign of that stuff, 3x. And then one more dot 3. Oh, and by the way, so I don't forget to say this, I was sitting here, like, I can log in as a student on Delta Math just to see what it looks like from your point of view, and I was entering some of these. They let you just do that. You don't have to simplify them at all. That's why I'm not making you. Like, you can type this times that, and it'll accept it as the answer. Okay. All right, what are we plugging into that? Pi over 3. Okay. Pi over 3 times 3, that would just be pi. We said that was -1. To the 4th, we 1 times 5, 5. Okay, so this portion is 5 times. Now, when you plug in pi over 3 times 3, that would be pi. So that's still on this side, like the left. But now it's sine. So that's 0. And then times 3. But because there's a 0 in there, yeah, the whole thing just ends up being 0. And so this is your point. 0 is your slope. It would be y plus 1 equals 0, x minus pi over 3. I just tend to leave the format the same no matter what. I realize it came out to 0. You guys get that that would be a horizontal line, right? Like, okay. I just leave it alone though, because I'm a leave it aloner. All right. Hands off. And then last one. At what values of x does this function have a horizontal tangent line? Horizontal means what? 0 slope. So you are going to get your derivative and set it equal to 0. Horizontal tangent line, we want a slope of 0. So get your derivative, set it equal to 0. All right, so what's the derivative of this guy? Good, 1. I wanted to see if we would get that. Good, plus cosine x, we're going to set it equal to 0. That is not considered a linkage error because that's like what the directions say. If anyone was thinking like, okay, what about that? All right, and then what would you do to start solving that? Yeah, subtract over the 1. We'll see who remembers our pre-calc here. Although actually we kind of just talked about this point on the unit circle. Where on the unit circle is cosine, the x part, -1 at pi? Now, real quick though, just in case it turned out different, because we had just talked about that one. What if it was, what if it was sine of x equals -1? Where on your unit circle is the y value -1? At the bottom, that would be 3 pi over 2. Okay, I was just checking. All right.